Welcome aboard to Adapter Parish, episode 84, 310 to Yuma. We'll be heading out west shortly, but first, let's talk about our next episode. Well, episodes, really. February's coming up, and that means Valentine's Day, and that means we're talking about love. We're celebrating Cupid's Month with a two-part look at Jane Austen's Emma. First, we'll be talking about the original novel and 5 of its more traditional adaptations. We'll be discussing the 1972 BBC miniseries, the 1996 theatrical movie, the 1996 television movie, the 2009 BBC miniseries, and the 2020 theatrical movie. That'll be out in 2 weeks on Tuesday, February 9th. Then, 2 weeks later, we'll look at 4 of the more creative adaptations of Emma. And yes, that means we'll be discussing Clueless. Part 2 will be out on Tuesday, February 23rd. If you have any comments, questions, or corrections about today's episode or any others that you'd like to hear on the show, remember to email adapterparishcast@gmail.com. If you enjoy the show, we'd love it if you would share that with the world by leaving a rating and review wherever you listen to podcasts. We're also on Patreon at patreon.com/adaptcast. We've got a patron-only community and our bi-weekly bonus show, Adapter Parish Plus, with episodes releasing every Tuesday between episodes of this show. We hope you check it out. Show notes from this and all other episodes can be found at adapterparishcast.com. And with that, on with the show, Adapter Parish, episode 84, 310 to Yuma. Hello and welcome to Adapter Parish, a podcast about adaptation. I'm Jeremy Latour.
And I'm Arielle Lipshaw. What a week. What a week.
I mean...
How are you doing?
Well, I assume by the time everyone's listening to this that things are okay because we're recording before the inauguration, but in the United States. So
they're either going to be okay or we'll all be dead.
We don't know. We just don't know.
Don't know.
It's just been a little stressful in this house. Are you okay?
I mean...
I know you're not.
Do you want to describe...
I'm asking more out of, obligation.
I just turned to Jeremy a few minutes ago and I was like, do I look really pitiful right now? And he was like, I'm not going to lie. You do. I was just really cold. So I'm sitting up, but my bottom half is wrapped in a blanket like an invalid in an old movie.
You don't look so much like an invalid. You look like you're on the deck of a cruise ship and there are people playing shuffleboard not 20 feet from you.
It's a really nice warm blanket.
And there's little kids running past, little old-timey kids running past you.
This is actually appropriate.
From steerage.
This is actually appropriate because this is a Civil War reproduction blanket.
Oh.
Yeah. And we're going to talk about the Civil War in this episode.
We are going to talk about the
bit.
Civil War. This is weird. It's just weird how timely this episode ended up being.
Weirdly timely.
I didn't expect that. And so when we watch, we'll get more into it when we actually talk about them. But when we watch the 1957 310 to Yuma, thematically, it made me think of what we were currently dealing with because we watched it all, and we are recording after the January 6th insurrection at the Capitol.
The unpleasantness.
Yeah. So 57 was thematically, this is kind of about what we're dealing with right now. And then 2007 is directly about what we're dealing with.
It was very on the nose. And we'll come to it because it was very interesting. It was the most interesting part of that movie, not to spoil anything.
I mean, that's a huge spoiler right there. Anyway, this one is going out to all the dads out there. We're doing 310 to Yuma.
Yeah, we should have mentioned that.
I mean, that's your job. I introduce everything. I throw to you.
Yeah.
You say your name. And then you say, this is what we're talking about. And this time, though, you decided to talk about your blanket and the unpleasantness.
It's been a heck of a week.
That's what we're dealing with here.
It's been a heckin' week.
What was your experience with 310 to Yuma before we did this?
Nor read nor seen.
Did you know anything? Do you remember, the Christian Bale, Russell Crowe vehicle coming out?
No, I don't remember that. I didn't know it was based on a short story, which is cool because it's an Elmore Leonard short story, which I was not aware of.
I am so excited that we're finally doing Elmore Leonard on this show. I love Elmore Leonard. We'll get into that in a little bit, but I'm stoked about it.
Yeah, because I thought it was going to be just movie, and I was ready to fight you on it because I usually don't like to do things that are just two. And then we found out it was a short story. So, it was legit.
I mean, I knew it was a short story.
Okay, well, fair enough.
You found out from me that it was a short story.
Yes, correct.
Elmore Leonard is great.
I want to be very clear when we were talking about the schedule, I was the one that said, let's finally do 310 to Yuma. I suggested it for this slot.
And I'm the one that put it on the list.
Great. It was a 50-50 effort. It was a bipartisan effort.
It appears we are at an impasse. This is in track. Should we just do this for the rest of the episode?
No one wants to hear this.
Let's actually talk about 310 to Yuma, though.
Getting some stuff out.
Okay, so 310 to Yuma, getting into the short story, it was published in 1953. It was originally published in a Dime Western magazine. Do you know what it was called?
Dime Western for boys.
No, it's literally called Dime Western magazine.
All right, that was pretty close.
That was pretty close. It was written by Elmore Leonard. Elmore Leonard, who, like, he's one of those weird guys who he does his crime books, but he also does his Western books, and occasionally there's some crossover. I didn't do any like big background on Elmore Leonard. Elmore Leonard has done some things that people may have heard of, like he wrote Get Shorty, he wrote Out of Sight. He created, the book was called Rum Punch, but then it was made into the movie Jackie Brown. So he I think if you've seen those movies, you have a really good idea of the type of characters that he creates. He does enjoy his criminals. He creates villains that are very sympathetic and compelling, and he creates heroes that are super flawed, and then puts them up against each other. And usually things are pretty fun along the way. Another thing that was based on one of his stories was the show Justified, which is just a hoot and a half, and is great, and is a really good example of something that was based on an Elmore Leonard short story that he ended up writing like more books about the main character. But like the show feels very Elmore Leonard, even though 99% of what happens in the show is not actually based on any text that Elmore Leonard wrote.
Yeah.
And I thought this short story really felt like Elmore Leonard.
I mean, I'm going to have to defer to you on that because I haven't read any other Elmore Leonard.
No, I'm telling you.
Yeah.
That's what I'm telling you. My expert opinion as someone who's read a lot of... I was super into Elmore Leonard when I was like a teenager.
Yeah.
But it feels very Elmore Leonard because you've got... I'm going to describe the whole story.
Yes, and it's very short.
It goes without saying, spoiler alert for the whole... everything. We're going to spoil all of it because everything's pretty simple. The story takes place mostly in a hotel room in an Old West town. There is a deputy marshal who has a train robber who is currently a fugitive. He has him under arrest in the hotel room, and what they are doing is they are waiting for a train to come through. Let me check my notes. Let me see which train it was.
And what time?
Well, it's the 310 to Yuma is the one that they're waiting for. And so most of the short story happens in the hotel room, and it's just the two of them talking to each other. And you've got this like kind of grizzled deputy marshal named Paul Scallon, and you've got this kid named Jimmy Kidd, who is the fugitive, and he's very charismatic and he's very funny. And there's also like two other characters. There's Mr. Timpy, who's from Wells Fargo, who is representing the people that he stole from.
Yeah.
And it's in his best interest to also get this guy arrested and get him to Yuma to go to jail. Or hung. I don't remember if it said specifically in the short story.
Presuming he's convicted by a jury of his peers, he would be hung.
He also like killed people and stuff. But then there's also Charlie Prince and the rest of Jimmy Kidd's gang. It turns out Charlie was downstairs in the lobby the whole time,
pretending to be asleep,
pretending a guy, because it was a whole secret that they were there. Turns out his whole gang knows. So the end of the short story is Paul having to get Jimmy to the train, and so there's a shootout, and it ends up being very harrowing, but the whole thing is over very quick, and then it ends with the two of them on the train, and Jimmy looks at Paul and he says, you know what, you really earned your money today, because he's getting paid, I believe, $150 to take him in and get him on the train.
They raised it for the movie then, because I think it was $200 in the movie.
200, I don't know, round number.
Yeah,
I guess that's literally it.
Yeah.
There's a little flavor in there. Is there anything else that I missed that you can think of?
No, that's pretty much it. And I mean, I will say, like, I read the story. I got the general bones of it. I got basically what you described. I was a little bit confused about who was who. It was a lot of just dudes with last names. And I thought about going back and reading it again now after having seen the two movies. And I thought, you know what? I'm not sure I need to. It was pretty straightforward. I think it's fine.
Yeah.
Because that was it. That was the story. It was an interesting story. And it was well written and very like fast paced, as you said. It holds your attention.
Yeah. I don't know how much else there is to say about it other than it's very good. It's very fun. I could see someone saying, this inspired me to write a feature-length story.
Yes.
I wish there was more to talk about it. I mean, we had the same kind of thing when we did Brokeback Mountain, where like that's technically like a short story. It's a novella.
Yeah.
You know, you look at something like that. I think we talked about this a little bit. Like, how do you take something short and adapt it into like a feature?
Yeah.
And that one worked really well because they pretty much just did every single thing that happens in the short story.
Yes.
And then what you're left with is a very, a complete movie.
Yes.
A complete story.
Yeah.
With this one, though.
Well, this one I was like, I bet that this incident in the hotel room is not a whole movie.
No.
It couldn't be.
No.
And it's not.
It's like half a movie.
Yeah.
Which I really appreciated. But that's the thing going into it. Like, I had seen the 2007 movie before this, but you not having seen any of them, did you have any guesses as to how a movie was going to factor in that scene? Like, where in the movie that would take place?
Well, I think you told me pretty early that, like, it's the end. Because
Yeah.
I said, this isn't the movie. And you said, well, it's the end of the movie or something like that.
Did
so
I
was
spoil
like,
that?
Yeah, a little bit. That's okay.
I'm sorry about that.
That's okay.
But I feel like it could be anywhere. You could decide to put this might be the opening of the movie.
Yeah,
And
and
then-
they could be about what happens after they get on the train.
Yeah, I'm thinking it's like a Midnight Run type thing,
Mhm.
which is a fantastic movie if you haven't seen it.
Mm.
Of just like him trying to get Jimmy to like to the prison,
Mhm.
and this was only the first trial that he had to go through.
Yeah.
But instead, like as we talked about, like it's the end of the movie.
Yeah.
1957 movie comes out. We're getting right to it.
Mhm.
This movie was directed by Delmer Daves, who did a number of different things. Nothing like particularly of note that's relevant for this episode. It was written by a screenwriter named Halstead Wells, and there are a number of very good people who are in this movie. Glenn Ford played Ben Wade.
Yeah.
So right off the bat, we're changing character names.
Right.
So Jimmy Kidd, our charismatic ne'er-do-well,
The outlaw.
has been renamed Ben Wade.
Ben Wade.
In fact, I think the only character whose name remains is Charlie Prince,
Gotcha.
who is his right-hand man. And then there's Dan Evans, who's a farmer.
A rancher.
Yep. Who's played by Van Heflin.
Yes.
Who just like, he's got a face that would make a lemon pucker, I tell you.
He's got a heavy brow.
Very heavy brow, and his lips are constantly pursed.
Yes.
As if he has eaten nothing but lemons
Yes.
his entire life. There's a number of other people. We'll get to them through it, but like the movie is really about the two of them.
Yeah.
Should we go through the plot?
Yeah, I think we should. Okay. So, our hero is a rancher in Arizona. He's got a wife and 2 boys, and they are having a real rough go of it. Their water is all dried up, and they have to pay the rancher whose ranch is like above them for water rights because he's like blocked the dam.
And then it gets worse.
And then it gets worse. So he's out with his boys, and he witnesses a stagecoach being pulled over and robbed. And he witnesses this gang not only rob the stagecoach, but shoot the driver. Not only does Ben Wade, our anti-hero, shoot the driver, but he shoots one of his own guys because the driver takes the guy hostage and is like, let us go or I'm going to kill this guy. And Ben Wade is like, I do not care, and shoots both of them. So there's this murder. And we also find out that this guy, Dan, is in debt, and his wife is trying to convince him to like borrow some money just to kind of get them through the next season. So when our movie begins, he's just witnessed this terrible thing happening, and he is also heading out to town to the marshal to try to borrow some money. Does that seem accurate so far?
That seems accurate. Like
Yeah.
there's some flavor. I mean, let's dive into it for a second. What an introduction of a character.
Yes.
Not Dan. Dan's fine.
Yeah.
Like Dan's the hero. He's more of a slow burn type character.
Yeah.
Where it's not like he is immediately well defined and immediately interesting. Like he's just a guy. He's a normal guy.
Yeah.
Who's been thrust into the situation.
With his boys.
Ben Wade, though, he is immediately interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Because, and this is one of the things that I enjoyed most about the movie, I have not really seen Glenn Ford in very much. I don't know. Have you seen him in anything?
No, I think I'm getting him mixed up with Glenn Campbell in my mind because I'm
Yes.
thinking he was in True Grit, which he was not.
No, those are two different people. Oh,
Yeah.
there is a song.
Oh yeah,
There's a title song.
We love a Western title song. I wrote that down. Yeah, it has the title of the movie in it. Pretend to Yuma.
I've already forgotten how it goes.
Yeah, I mean, you can imagine.
It does not is not my favorite part of the movie. Let me say that. My only experience up till now with Glenn Ford, because I'm not a huge Western person, was he plays Pa Kent in the Christopher Reeve Superman movie. He's the one. He plays his Superman's adoptive dad, and dies of a heart attack early on in the movie.
Oh no.
I'm not spoiling it. It's Superman. It's been out since the 70s. So that was my experience with Glenn Ford. So my only experience was him playing like a nice guy And it was interesting to watch him also play a nice guy.
Mhm.
Like Ben Wade is a nice guy
He's
in
so
this
nice.
movie.
He's so nice.
He's real like what are his positive characteristics? He's
polite,
he's like cute, clean shaven,
kind to women,
you know?
flattering to women.
Would you agree with that though? Like he's cute.
He's cute.
He's
yeah.
like, he's cute.
Ladies love him.
Yeah, he's not this like grizzled kind of villain type thing. Like he's very boyish
Yes.
in how he looks and how he acts, but he's a very polite man, as you say. But also one of the first action we see him do is like try to rob a stagecoach.
Yeah.
Which is bad.
Yeah.
And then, when faced with the decision, because his guy has been taken hostage by the driver,
Yeah.
like you've asked the wrong man, like you're threatening the wrong man,
Yeah.
because I do not care about this man.
Yeah.
In fact, I'll prove it to you. I will kill him, and then I will kill you.
But he's very fair. Because he does run into Dan and the boys,
Mhm.
and
He knows they saw everything.
Yeah, he knows they saw everything, and he steals their horses, but he gives them back. He released their cattle like as a diversion to make the coach stop. And Dan's like, "That's my cattle," and Ben is like, "I'm very sorry." But later, when Dan runs into Ben Wade, he's like, "You gotta, Mister, like you gotta pay me for my time. Like you caused a ruckus, and I need to be made whole." And
I ain't got time for your shenanigans.
yeah, and my boy's time too, by the way. And Ben Wade is like, "Yeah, that's fair. How much do I owe you, sir?" You know, like he pays his debts. I think he's a man who pays his debts.
Yeah.
What he
So-
considers to be his debts. He's like, he's lawful evil. I would say.
I found him so compelling in this. Like Ben Wade is my favorite part of the movie. Like Dan's great. I ended up really liking Dan. Van Heflin is very, very good and very compelling. But Ben's the thing that makes the movie interesting
Mhm.
because he's not just a cookie cutter bad guy. He's a compelling bad guy. He's an interesting bad guy. And he's a bad guy that you don't hate, which is, I think, kind of emblematic of an Elmore Leonard story. And that's
Mhm.
the thing I liked most about it. And I think that's the part of the character because, yes, in the hotel scene, he does act a lot like Jimmy Kidd does in the short story.
Mhm.
But they really expanded that. And they really, I think they did a really good job of figuring out how that character would exist throughout the entire movie and still feel really consistent with the short story.
Yeah.
Even though they changed his name and they made him older and stuff like that. But he still feels like that character.
Yeah. So while he's in town, the gang rides up and they're drinking at the saloon. And someone rides in and is like, "Hey, Marshall, the stagecoach." Oh, because Mr. Butterfield is there in town waiting for the stagecoach. No, Mr. Butterfield was on the stagecoach.
Yeah,
he
you're
owns,
kind of. I think
he
you're-
owns the stagecoach.
I think you're getting things reversed a little
I'm
bit.
so sorry.
That's okay. Butterfield's on the stagecoach.
Butterfield's on the stagecoach.
And he represents the stage.
The
Like,
stage. He owns it,
It's his
doesn't he?
line.
Yeah.
Yeah. He is stranded with the stagecoach.
Yes, they don't have any horses. They're like out in the middle of the desert.
Well, that's because, Ben Wade and his gang took their horses and also
horses.
took Dan's horses.
Yes, correct.
And so Dan comes down and he's interacting with Butterfield and everything. And they can't ride into town, but Ben and his men can ride into town.
Yeah.
And one of the first things they do is they tell the marshal, "Hey, just so you know, hey, we're all ranchers.
We're
cattlemen.
We're driving some cattle down to
Yeah.
Mexico.
Yeah.
By the way, we saw this whole thing. You should go out and help these people."
A guy was killed.
Yeah.
And so all the law leaves town.
Yeah.
And so now just Ben and his guys are all free to just go to the bar and hang out.
With the lady.
The single lady.
There's one lady.
Mhm.
She
the single lady.
She is behind the bar. And
Oh, no, I forgot. Dan's wife is
Dan's
in it,
wife
too.
is, I want to talk about Dan's wife in a
Yeah.
minute. But she's behind the bar, and she and Ben Wade like hit it off right away. Like this is a man that I think killing makes him horny, and
I think breathing makes him horny.
he's got a line that he uses that he likes to talk about cute girls with green eyes, and the ladies love it. And this movie is what, 1957? They bone. I mean, you don't
It's
see
not,
anything.
Like, it's implied.
It's implied, but there is a sexual encounter.
There's a
between
carnal
these two
implication.
people. Yes, there's carnality involved. So he bangs this barmaid that we're never going to see again, and it does not matter. And then now remind me exactly what the sequence of events is. At this point, does everybody else ride back into town? Because
Yes.
Dan comes back to town.
So all of this is happening,
Yeah.
Ben tells his gang, "You guys all go.
Yeah.
I'm going to stay behind
And
to
bone
take
this
care of
lady.
some business."
I'm going to bone this lady.
He says, "I'm going to take care of some business." I'm sure they know he's going to bone the lady.
Yeah.
Because they could see them in the bar together. Dan and Butterfield have now interacted with the sheriff and all of his gang.
Yeah. And they said to him it was Ben Wade. Like once the sheriff and everybody rides out,
Yeah.
Dan knows who Ben Wade is.
Mhm.
Yeah. So now they're aware that
So
they've
now
been had.
they run back into town.
Exactly.
And oh, it's real sad. Ben should not have hung around.
No.
Well, and also like Ben didn't expect them to get back so soon because he thought they would make it all the way out to where the stage was.
Yeah.
But they had actually like made their way closer to the town.
Right.
So they get back. Dan goes with them. And they essentially use him to capture Ben.
Yes.
And he's very nervous.
Yes.
And he doesn't like it.
Yeah.
But he's going to do it anyway.
Yes.
And I think this is my second favorite scene in the movie. Because my favorite is the hotel.
Right.
I think the hotel scene is incredible. But just this scene where Dan, like going into the bar and there's Ben Wade. Like here's this famous killer at the bar. And he knows that there are men with guns surrounding the place. And he's going to go up to him and stall.
Yes.
And this is when the conversation happens
About
that you were
all the
talking about.
$2 is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Ben's real nice about the whole thing, and then suddenly he has a gun to the back of his head.
Yeah.
And they take him captive. And at this point, like Dan could be out if he wanted to.
Yes. The marshal wishes to deputize him, and he needs to send someone to, what is the name of the town? Contention.
Yeah.
Because there's like 3 different places that they could go, and like it's like the men, they're trying to outwit the men because they don't want the men to come after Dan.
Ben Wade's
men. I'm gonna confuse them this whole time.
You're just calling all of them the men.
The men. They don't want Ben Wade's men to come and find them and try to free Ben Wade through violent means. They wish to deliver him to the hands of justice by putting him on the 310 to Yuma. That is their plan. But there's like different places they could potentially take him, but they're going to take him to Contention, which is where this train stops.
And they come up with a whole plan.
Yeah, there's
too.
a whole plan.
And like, so why does Dan agree to go?
Because he needs the money very badly.
What money?
He's offered $200 to do this thing.
Yeah, Butterfield says, hey, $200 if you can get him there.
Yeah.
Because they got to get a posse together.
So there's this whole plot because they know that people from the gang are probably out watching, like out somewhere in the darkness watching. So there's this whole thing that they like do a ruse where they put him on the stagecoach and make it look like the stagecoach breaks down, and then they switch people so he gets off the stagecoach, but like they make it look like he didn't, so that the guy who's probably watching will think that he's on this stagecoach that's going to a different destination, right? But they end up back at Dan's house for the evening because they're going to ride out under cover of darkness. So they have to interact with Dan's wife, who I only just realized I don't think ever has a name. In the newer one, she's Alice. Was she Alice in this one too? Okay, so she's Alice, and his boys. Oh, and they're there with the town drunk, whose name is
Alex Potter.
Alex Potter, who is the same actor who played the creepy gardener in The Bad Seed. Remember the
like
one
the
that
50s one,
the one that the little girl kills with her shoes, or no, she shoves him in the furnace. But he deserved it in that movie because he was very creepy. Anyway,
he didn't deserve to die.
He didn't deserve to die, but he was very mean to her. Remember how he was like really shitty?
I agree with that, but he didn't deserve to die.
Right. Okay. So anyway, it's the same actor.
You're bloodthirsty over here.
It's the same actor, and he's like the town drunk, but he's very nice.
Guy named Henry Jones.
Yeah, he's really nice.
You might know his son, Indiana.
Okay. So they all sit down to dinner, and Ben Wade really puts the charm on for Dan's wife, and Dan does not appreciate it so much.
She does a little.
She does a little.
Like, not a lot.
Not a lot.
It's not one of these things where she's, like, unbelievably falling over him.
Yeah.
But she's definitely, like
this,
all right.
This was a road I could have gone down.
Like,
I made some choices that
He is cute.
Yeah.
He's definitely cute.
Yeah.
And he's very polite.
Yes.
Like, isn't there the thing with Grace?
Yeah.
Where he goes to start eating before they've said grace, and one of the kids says, like, but we always say grace here. And his immediate reaction is just like, oh, well,
I'll just stop.
I'm very sorry.
Yeah. And I just have a word to say about his wife, because in the story there are no female characters. Like, his wife is mentioned, but she's not like a character in the story. And in this version, I really liked her. I thought she was plucky. Like, I thought she was a very strong woman. She was opinionated. Like, she was telling Dan, like, I think you should do this. Like, you know, we're not doing very well here. Like, you need to kind of make some different choices about how we're gonna survive out here. And you have this feeling that he thinks that like his marriage may be kind of crumbling because he can't provide for his family, because this is toxic masculinity, right? But then at the end, you see that she really loves him and cares for him and wants him to be okay, because I'm gonna jump ahead just for a second.
We're spoiling everything, so it's fine.
I mean, we're gonna come back to this point, but
yeah.
like they're in this other town, and she's so worried about them because she hasn't heard anything, and he's with this dangerous criminal. So she like jumps in the wagon and like drives out there, like in great personal peril because like these outlaws are everywhere and there's going to be a shootout in this town, just to like be with him and make sure he's okay. And then at the end, like she's there kind of waving them off on the train, and
they do make it.
Yeah, they do make it. And I just feel like she's a pretty fully realized character. Like she's not just like a foil for him to she's not just like the fact of him having a wife personified.
Yeah.
Like she has some agency, which I did appreciate, especially for a movie from the 50s.
I mean, they felt like partners in the relationship.
I thought so.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, as much as could be expected.
And the
like,
story
for the time.
The story is really about Dan's journey.
Yeah.
Like if there is one central through line that's like character based in the movie, it's Dan's commitment to doing the right thing.
Yeah.
That's really what it's about, because Ben doesn't really have a journey at all. He just exists through the story for Dan to bounce off of. There is like one little arc that he has where, we're skipping around a little bit, but when they get to contention, there is a family there there's a funeral basically.
Yeah.
For the driver of the stagecoach.
Right.
Who Ben killed.
Right.
And like the guy's mom is there.
And his brother.
And his brother is there with his dudes. And he finds out that Ben is in a hotel room in the hotel that he's having a drink at. So he immediately breaks in and tries to kill Ben.
Yes.
And Dan saves his life.
Right.
Because that's not the right thing.
It's not justice.
That's not justice. We got to get him on the 310 to Yuma. That's justice.
Right.
And so because he saves Ben's life, Ben owes him one.
Right.
In his own kind of twisted way.
It's lawful evil.
Yes.
It's lawful evil.
Mhm.
He has a moral code. It's not maybe yours or mine, but it is one.
And like in his mind, like Ben's broken out of Yuma prison multiple times.
Yeah.
So like him going to prison, yes, he doesn't want to, but it's not the end of his life.
Yes.
If he goes.
Yes.
So that's part of what gets him on the train at the end.
Right.
They're not really friends, but they definitely have established a relationship at this point.
Yes.
And they did help each other.
Yes.
But what I was saying was like the journey is Dan's.
Yes.
The whole thing is Dan's commitment to doing the right thing. And this is what I was talking about in terms of like kind of thematically describing what's going on right now with like the fucking insurrection at the Capitol. There's a lot that's said about how you know what's right and wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying like if you watched it a year from now, I don't think you would watch it. I don't think one would watch it and go, you know what? It sounds like what they're talking about is like, don't do an insurrection.
Don't do it.
But watching it, when did we watch it? Like a couple of days after it happened?
Yeah.
It just felt very relevant.
Yeah.
It's not like they say anything about Washington or a civil war or anything like that.
Sure.
It's just more about like, you got to do the right thing.
Yes.
And if you got to bring people to justice.
Right.
Like people who do the wrong thing should be brought to justice. And as we've seen over the course of days now, many people are being brought to justice.
We hope.
Which is, well, they've certainly been a lot of arrests.
Yeah.
Which is very good.
Yes.
But anyway, Dan's story is the through line of the movie.
Yeah. I read something today that was like, if you're at a protest and you look around and there are Nazis there and they are advocating for the same thing as you are on the wrong side. Whatever you think you're there for, you need to switch sides. The Nazis will never be on the right side of anything.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was a good, at a very like low, it's a low bar, but like a good moral compass to try to follow, I think, throughout your life.
I think so.
Is that fair?
Yeah.
Anyway.
This movie's about moral compasses.
It is. Okay, so they're at the house and they ride out under cover of darkness to get to this town, and they get to the hotel and they're let into, isn't it the bridal suite?
Yeah.
Because it's like the biggest room in the
Yeah.
hotel. Then begins this sort of psychological battle between these two guys.
The short story has begun, by the way.
Yes.
Like they've arrived at the hotel. The names are different. There's still this thing of like, they come in and they talk to the hotel manager. They're like, is anyone here? Does anyone know that we're here? He says, no one's really come in or out. They're, what about that guy sleeping over there on the couch? And
He's sleeping.
we know it's Charlie Prince.
Yeah.
We know it's his weird, kind of sadistic sidekick, Ben Wade's sadistic sidekick, but they don't know that.
Mm-hmm.
We know because we read the short story. And the short story basically happens from this point on. They just expand on it because they're in the hotel room for what feels like half the movie.
I mean, it is about half the movie, I think.
And I don't mean that literally half the movie. I don't mean that in a negative way at all, because I think everything that happens in the hotel room is brilliant. I think it's the best part of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
I just think it's really ballsy to take look, can we talk about tone for a second?
Sure.
How would you describe the tone of this movie?
It's got some levity to it.
Yeah, it definitely does.
But
I wrote down the line that made us both laugh.
Oh, was that about the lemon pie?
Yeah. It was Was it Ben Wade saying it?
I think so.
My own grandmother fought the Indians for 60 years and then choked to death on lemon pie.
Yeah. I
Just
don't remember
things
the
can just end.
context. Yeah,
Things can just end.
Yeah.
You never know how things are going to go.
Death on lemon pie.
Yep.
But it is it's low key, I would say.
It's very low key. It's a very chill movie.
Yeah.
It's very like it's not like there's no tension. There's tension,
but it's like simmering.
People are dying.
Literally
but it's
dying.
like what then when people start dying, it's like that's what we've been building the tension towards. So the tension is very slowly building. But the movie has these really beautiful sequences that are just very slow. Like the sequence where Ben and his gang go to the bar and they're interacting with Emmy.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very slow scene. And you really get a chance to get to know everybody. And they're not rushing to do anything. No one's life is in danger at this point. We're just getting to know the characters.
Mm-hmm.
And we're getting to see how quiet and methodical and polite Ben is. And the scene kind of comes out of that. And a lot of the movie is like that. It's a very thoughtful, slow movie. And it's great, too, because it's like a trim 90 minutes.
Yeah.
It's good 90-minute movie. But yeah, 45 minutes of it is just Dan and Ben in the hotel room, and we are cutting away at different times.
Yeah.
We're going down to the lobby. We're meeting other people.
We go back to his wife at one point.
Yeah, because we see her coming into town. Yeah. And basically there's a lot of escalation while they're in the room because, like, at some point Charlie wakes up.
Yeah.
And is aware that Ben is upstairs.
Yeah.
And so he starts communicating with Ben, and the whole gang comes in. And
they're
so,
like shouting out the window, like everybody knows they're there.
Like tension is ratcheting. Like this,
and then Butterfield,
it feels like it could be a play.
Yeah, and then like it's the brother, right, that like tricks Butterfield into getting access to the room.
The driver's brother.
The driver's brother. Yeah. And Butterfield's like, I'm here. I got some coffee for you. And he's like, okay, come on in. And like, it's the driver's brother with like a gun to Butterfield's back going like, let me in. I got to kill this guy. Yeah. Like, I don't know if we can go through it like beat by beat because I don't think we'd do it justice. But like, was there anything else specifically you wanted to talk about?
No, just I think it's a really great example of two characters who are kind of diametrically opposed being put in a situation where they just kind of, the only thing they can do is talk to each other.
Yeah.
There's no action here. Like, yeah, there's like a moment where Ben tries to get one over on Dan, but Dan, pushes him back down.
Yeah, and he's like, I just had to try, like, to see what you would do.
Like a little bit of a scuffle, but there's no action that really happens. It's really just the two of them talking, and you really see Ben, like, getting under Dan's skin.
Yeah.
And this is where it becomes so effective that they've created this character who is evil, like in a grand sense, from a story perspective, who's evil, but he's like very nice and very well spoken. And I think that pays off in this scene because it makes him so effective in getting under Dan's skin. And Dan is a super basic person.
He's just
like,
a guy.
There's no subtext to Dan.
Yeah.
He's just a guy who's doing his goddamn best. And he's not as smart as everyone.
Yeah.
He's not gonna outwit Ben.
Yeah.
Like he's not sitting there going like, what's my plot gonna be to get
like,
you on the train?
I'm here to do my job.
I'm here to do a job. I said I would do a job. My family needs the money. And putting you on that train is the right thing, and someone's got to do the right thing.
Yeah.
And I need my wife to respect me, and I need my family to respect me, and I need to respect myself, and that's why this needs to happen. And he does indeed get under Dan's skin a lot, and Dan loses it a little bit. But it's just this beautiful ratcheting up of tension through like 40 minutes.
Yeah.
It's really good.
Yeah.
I don't have any other specific things to say about it. I ended up loving this movie.
It was great.
Like,
it was good.
Because so do you want to kind of wrap up this one?
Yeah. So they time passes, and the time has come. They need to get this man on the train.
Can I go back for a second?
Yes, I'm so sorry.
There's one big piece of action that happens while they're in the hotel room.
Yeah.
Poor Alex Potter, the town drunk.
Oh, they do.
Beefs it.
They beef him.
Yeah, because the whole gang is there.
They hang him.
And it is, they shoot him and then they hang him.
Right.
The hanging seemed more symbolic than anything else.
Yeah.
He seemed to have already been dead or dying.
Oh, God.
At that point.
Because they hear him like scream out.
Yeah.
Like for help, and they can't help him.
Poor Alex, because it just.
He gave his life for this mission.
Yeah. Not that he needed. It's just sad. It's
Yeah.
really sad, but it puts a lot of pressure on Dan.
Yeah.
That's like the big thing.
He's like, this guy's now died for this, and so I got to see it through.
Yeah, so Alex is dead. Butterfield is telling him, you don't have to go through with this. There are too many of them out there. I will still give you the $200. We can just leave.
Yeah.
But that's not the right thing to do.
And his wife is there, I think, at this point, too.
Yeah, she's up in the hotel room
she's like,
with
you
them.
got to do what you think is best.
Yeah. It's like, I trust you.
Yeah.
Because it's them. Because it's a partnership. Their relationship's a partnership.
Yep.
And then, yes, as you say, finally, the time has come.
Basically, They got to get to the train station by 10 after 3.
Everyone's tried to catch a train.
They're trying to go.
Everyone's tried to catch a train or an airplane. It's stressful.
Remember when we tried to catch
Even when
that
people
train
aren't trying to kill you.
from London to Oxford, and it was so stressful?
What made it take so long? Was it like the cab or
no,
the
we
tube
left the
or
hotel
something?
in plenty of time, and then we waited for the tube forever, and then we realized like it wasn't running or something, and so we jumped it, and then we had just wasted so much time. We jumped in a cab, and there was so much traffic, and that we had to jump out of the cab and run. Remember, we ran, and we didn't have the tickets. We had to buy the tickets at the machine.
We had them. We had to print them.
We had to print them, and it was like the train was about to. We literally ran. Jumped onto the ticket machine, grabbed the tickets, ran down the platform, jumped on the train, and the train started.
And the
to
Kinks
move.
were playing. It was like Darjeeling Limited style. Like everything was in slow motion. The Kinks were playing, and we made it onto the train.
We made it onto
to
the
have
train.
a day trip to Oxford.
And it was so hot, and we could not. It was not air conditioned, and we couldn't find a seat, so we just stood there. I think we went to the dining car at one point because it was air conditioned in there.
Yeah.
But I just remember being like so because we'd run in the August heat. Anyway,
and no one was trying to kill us.
No one was
That's
trying to
my
kill us.
point.
We
And
were
it was
just
still stressful
we were just
enough.
trying to make a train because if we hadn't made that train, like we couldn't have gone because they only had like a certain like it wouldn't have been worth it to even go.
So
the next train was like not for hours.
Dan's got to make this train.
Anyway, I'm sorry.
And we get this fantastic action scene through the whole town. That's a very understated action scene. Like there's a lot of shots fired.
Mm-hmm.
And his gang, like Ben's gang is everywhere.
Yeah.
And they get to the train.
Train pulls in.
It's like this moment where Ben, in order for them to get on the train, Ben has to want to get on the train. And because, as I said before, because Dan saved his life, he owes him one, and they get on the train.
Yeah.
Like, does any of his gang die?
They may die.
Does Charlie die?
I think he does die. I'm not totally sure.
I don't remember.
I don't want to say for sure.
Like, only because it doesn't matter that much, because
Right.
the story's about Ben and Dan at this point.
Yeah, and then as the train pulls away, remember that Butterfield, he's told Butterfield to like take care of his wife and make sure she's like seen to because he may die in this endeavor. And the train pulls away, and like the wife and Butterfield are like waving from the cart, like, oh, they made it, and then they see it starts to rain. So that's the whole thing, right? It hasn't rained.
Yeah.
And the clouds have been rolling in, and it's raining, and they're just so happy and joyful because it's raining, and they're gonna have water for their farm.
And it's a real happy ending.
Yeah.
And then the end. And
The
that's it. And it's this beautiful, like, I know I said it before, it's this beautiful, like, 90-minute trim, chill, funny, but at times extremely tense.
Mm-hmm.
Like a little violent, but not super violent.
No,
It's not
ultra violent.
No, not even I wouldn't even call it violent. It's like a little violent.
Mhm.
And then everything's okay at the end.
Yeah.
Like the guy did the right thing, and the villain is on the train with him. But they have kind of an understanding now, and you almost want to see what happens to them after that.
Yeah.
As they get to Yuma. But that's 3:10 to Yuma.
3:10 to Yuma.
And it's a classic. And I can tell why it's a classic because
Mhm.
I'd never seen it, but I'd always heard about it. It's like True Grit or something like that. Like
Yeah.
you see the modern remake, and you're like, well, it's based on a classic, but I've never seen it. And I'm not speaking for everybody. Some people make the time to see these things, but we have to do a show in order to watch them.
Right.
It was very good. What'd you think of it?
It was good. I enjoyed it more than I thought I would.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because
definitely.
Westerns aren't really like Western. I like Westerns a little.
Yeah.
Do you like Westerns at all?
No. I liked True Grit,
Yeah.
but it's a little bit different.
So, 50 years pass. Do you have anything else to say, like to wrap up 57, or anything about the time between 57 and 2007?
I mean, some time passes, and it's now 2007.
Yeah, I'll throw out just one piece of background just to give some context to all of this.
Yeah.
Not even specific, anything specific, but like in general, Westerns died.
Yeah.
And Hollywood stopped making Westerns
Mhm.
because Westerns were huge in the movies and on TV. The Western was huge. And then the Western just died out.
Mhm.
And it had been this like kind of beautiful genre where you had a lot of people doing lots of different types of things. So you had like John Ford doing these very grounded, very emotional stories. And you had like Peckinpah doing like very violent stuff, and then you had the spaghetti westerns, like and you had Clint Eastwood, and these were just you had this like ultra tough guy, the man with no name, just mowing people down, that kind of thing.
Mhm.
Westerns could be a lot of different things, and they died. And then in the 90s, we got Unforgiven, and it
Mhm.
was like everyone suddenly Hollywood was like, oh,
These were fun.
people will go see a Western again. And it wasn't like there was this immediate rebirth, but I think it was kind of the pot was boiling for a while. And then finally, like finally the kettle was ready. Like the kettle was on at that point. Unforgiven put the kettle back on the burner.
Yeah.
And then suddenly in like the mid 2010 to the mid 2000s, it was whistling and it was ready to pour some out.
Yeah.
Because then we got a whole bunch of like modern Westerns at this point. So like 2007 was a crazy movie for modern Westerns because there was earlier in the year, There Will Be Blood.
Mm-hmm.
There was No Country for Old Men and the assassination of Jesse James by the coward Robert Ford.
Yep.
That were both in October, I think.
Okay.
310 to Yuma was originally slated to come out in October. They moved it up a month.
Arguably the lesser of those 4 movies.
I mean, here's the thing. Like, you're saying that as if that's a generally agreed upon thing. I feel like I'm taking crazy pills when I read the reviews for this movie. I liked this movie when it first came out. I didn't enjoy it this time, but it got super good reviews and people really like this movie. And I want to dig into a little bit about where I think that comes from.
Okay.
And what I think the problems are with thinking that it's really good.
Okay.
So 2007 was like this big year for modern Westerns, and now we have lots of modern Westerns. It was directed by James Mangold, who I'm going to name a bunch of things that he's kind of famous for, and then I'm going to name one thing that he is super famous for.
Okay.
He's kind of famous for being a director. He directed Copland.
Mm-hmm. I've seen that movie.
It's a very good movie.
It's pretty good.
Girl Interrupted.
I have seen that movie.
Kate and Leopold.
I have not seen Kate and Leopold.
But that's where he started his relationship with Hugh Jackman.
I mean, that's great.
Because then he went on to direct The Wolverine.
I see.
And then Logan.
Gotcha.
He did Walk the Line.
Okay, I've seen that.
Yeah. And he did Ford versus Ferrari, which just came out.
Cool.
And he's been nominated for Oscars multiple times now, both for writing and directing.
That's neat.
He's kind of famous for that. Here's the thing he is most famous for.
Is it bad or
he,
good?
He co-wrote Oliver and Company.
Okay, he's most famous for that.
Clearly, he is most famous for co-writing Oliver and Company.
Cool.
It was written by Michael Brandt and Derek Haas, who are a writing duo. They are... I'm sure they would say that this is the thing they are most well known for. They also wrote Too Fast, Too Furious.
Oh, good.
Which... My estimation of the Fast and Furious series is that none of them are like particularly very good, even though I really enjoy the series. I hear some people say that Too Fast, Too Furious is like a low point in the series, but because I think they're all kind of bad, I like Too Fast, Too Furious, so that's fine. But they also wrote 310 to Yuma. It starred, like, this was so well received, and it made a bunch of money, and it got fantastic critical reviews. I saw it in the theater, and I really enjoyed it. Russell Crowe as Ben Wade, Christian Bale as Dan Evans. You've got Peter Fonda, Ben Foster, Alan Tudyk is in this. There's a whole bunch of good people in this movie. And it was kind of a prestige picture, but it's this Western throwback. And people really liked it. And as I said, I saw it. I enjoyed it. That was 13 years ago. I had not seen it since.
Mm-hmm.
And then we watched it together.
We did.
Here's what I expected.
Okay.
Because I remembered some things about it. One, it's very violent.
Mm-hmm.
I did remember that.
It was very violent.
Two, I remember the change they made at the end.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, what's the big change?
Oh, Dan fully beefs it.
Yeah.
He does not make it on the train.
No. Ben makes it on the train.
He makes it on the train through his own free will.
Dan dies heroically.
Sort of.
Shot many times.
Many times. If shot like Sonny in The Godfather, like a million times.
And that was one of the things that was interesting for me because for 13 years, my only experience of the story of 310 to Yuma was, oh, well, Dan dies at the end.
He dies. He doesn't make it. Like, doesn't make it on the train.
And then I read the short story and I was like, well, that's not Dan.
Yeah.
But he didn't die.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. And then we watched the movie and I'm like, oh, well, this is Dan. He doesn't die. He makes it on the train. Oh, it's kind of a happy ending.
Yeah.
I feel kind of good right now at the end of this movie. Certainly didn't feel good at the end of the 2007 version.
Yeah.
So I knew that those things were happening. So my expectation was that it wasn't going to be your favorite movie.
Yeah.
But I was expecting to still enjoy it because
Yeah.
I remembered enjoying it before. I was right that you didn't enjoy it.
I took so many notes.
Yeah, you enjoyed it less than I expected.
Okay.
And I enjoyed it less than I expected.
I mean, here's where it started to go wrong for me.
Uh-huh.
So the beginning of the movie, right? We're introduced to Dan, and his barn has been burnt. And it's this whole scene, and during the scene where they're trying to get like the horse out of the barn and all their saddles and things before the barn burns to the ground, we realize he only has one leg because he's like struggling to strap on his
he like falls down, his boot and falls off.
His wooden leg, yeah. And immediately after that, it's like sort of the next morning, and it's the scene where he's sort of riding out with his boys, and
there's a lot to talk about.
I don't want to sound like I'm making fun of a character with a disability.
Mhm.
I want to put that right out there on the top.
You're not putting your person hat on right now. You're
Yeah.
putting your writer hat on
Yeah.
right now.
But the moment that I knew that this movie had no sense of humor and maybe took itself a tad too seriously is that Dan is talking to his shitty teenage son, his shitty 14-year-old who's a jerk, and he says to him words to the effect of, "You don't know what it's like to walk in my shoes." And the boy goes, "I'll never walk in your shoes." And I was like, what a missed opportunity for this to show what a shithead this kid is, to just say, "You mean your shoe." Um and the fact that there were just
Or something to that
some
effect.
words to that effect, and like
We can workshop it a little bit
we'll
more.
workshop it, but like, do you know what I mean? Like the moment that I knew that this movie would not have jokes in it was when they were talking so seriously and with such conviction about a man with one leg and his shoes. And again, I don't mean that to mock the disabled. I don't think you should mock the disabled, but like there was a way for the kid who we're being introduced to as a shithead to be really shitty to his dad, and it was a missed opportunity, I thought.
Yeah. This movie has no sense of humor.
Has no sense of
That's
humor.
why, like, I asked you
takes
about
itself
yeah.
so seriously.
I asked you about tone before.
Oh my God.
I have struggled with this a little bit. I struggled with it while we were watching it, and I've thought a lot about it since. This movie is a throwback, but it's not a throwback to the original. It's not a throwback to the type of Western that the original was. It's a throwback to the grittier Westerns,
Yeah.
the tougher Westerns, the violent Westerns, the like man with no name type thing. Okay, so here's an example. Byron McElroy. Remember Byron McElroy?
Which one's Byron McElroy?
Peter Fonda.
Oh, right. Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah, this guy goes through hell.
And then dies.
And then dies. He just like, doesn't he get thrown off a cliff at the end? Yeah.
Yeah.
Not at the end.
Like in the middle.
In the end.
His end.
His end. That's what
Yeah.
I meant. That's what I meant.
Everything is escalated.
Yeah.
Every single thing in this entire movie is escalated. And I just wrote down, like, why does modern adaptation require escalation? It seems to require it. It's rare that I see a remake that's like a remake of something that everyone agrees was like kind of long and very involved and had a lot of subplots, and you see a remake that's like, no, we're cutting it down, we're making it really straightforward, it's going to be a really trim, like 90 minutes, we're really just going to focus on a couple of the characters. That never happens. It's always the reverse. They always have to expand on it and add characters and add storylines and add length. This movie's 2 hours long,
So long.
and it's half an hour longer than it needs to be. And yeah, I'm very negative on this. I feel bad about it because a lot of people like this movie. I liked it for a long time. I do not like it now. I don't enjoy this movie.
Yeah.
I enjoy little pieces of it. I kept track because that moment happened, and I said to you, like, let's keep track. Let's find out when the first laugh
time we
happens.
laughed, and it was at the half-hour mark, I believe.
Yeah, and that's when you meet Alan Tudyk.
Yes. He was funny.
He's funny, but like he's introduced purely as comic relief.
Right, because he's the vet, but they have to take all these injured guys to him.
And I'm just going to ask this now. I'll bring it up more as we talk through it, but if you are a filmmaker and you are being tasked with doing an adaptation of like a remake of an adaptation of something that came from Elmore Leonard, he's not a nobody.
Mhm.
Like Elmore Leonard is a somebody. His work has been adapted many times. His books have been printed like millions of times. Like he is very well known. He's not Stephen King, but he's Elmore Leonard, you know?
Yeah.
I would think you would want to try to capture something of what makes Elmore Leonard Elmore Leonard.
Yes.
One of the things that, as I said, defines Elmore Leonard stories is that, like, the humor, they're very funny, but the humor comes from everywhere. It comes from all the characters.
Yeah.
All the characters are capable of humor. It doesn't matter whether they're good or bad or comic relief. Like, yes, some characters are funnier than others, but like the humor comes from the situation. It's really born out of all of the characters. And this is a movie where no one is allowed to be funny except the comic relief.
Yeah.
That's why you have comic relief to be funny, because, well, there's no way Dan would be funny. He's going through some shit. He's got one leg. There's nothing funny about this guy.
This sad sack.
His life sucks. His wife doesn't love him anymore. His kid fucking hates him. His other kid has tuberculosis
His
and
other
is
kid's
dying.
got the consumption.
You know? And like Ben Wade's not funny. Ben Wade's dangerous. He's a bad man. He's a bad man. But we got Alan Tudyk
Literally wears a black hat.
to be funny.
Yeah.
So we have our comic relief. what's your response to my TED Talk?
I mean, I don't disagree with any of that. My only caveat is that this is absolutely not an adaptation of an Elmore Leonard story. This is an adaptation of the earlier movie.
I agree with that, but it's still inspired by something that has a name attached to it.
I don't disagree. I'm just saying, like, I don't think. I mean, maybe this is skipping to our quadrants a little bit early. I would not be surprised if these filmmakers had not deeply consulted the Elmore Leonard story.
It would also not surprise me.
Yes.
But this is one of those things where we've talked about values before. Like, what are the values that we have? What are the things we value in an adaptation? Like, if what they wanted to make was a throwback to a Western that wasn't the original 3:10 to Yuma,
Yeah.
they should have adapted a different story.
Yeah. No, I get it.
And one of the things that I think made the original 3:10 to Yuma so good is that it was keeping in tone with the stories of the person who wrote the original short story.
Yeah.
That was something that struck me when we were watching it.
Yes.
And this moves so far away from that. So I'm not necessarily saying they should have consulted like all of the stories of Elmore Leonard.
Yeah.
I'm saying Elmore Leonard is a type of writer who they clearly were not trying to emulate at all.
Yeah. No, I agree.
That's all I'm trying to say.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, here's another example. Like, okay, so Byron McElroy, he's the Pinkerton, right? He's
Yes.
the detective.
So, but anyway, this is what started everything. So everything's escalated. So instead of them robbing like a stagecoach that has some gold on it,
This is like the stagecoach with
Yeah.
the gold. And,
And
it's like fitted out with these guns.
all the Pinkertons are on there. They've got a Gatling gun and
Yeah.
everything like that. So it is a like a military endeavor
Yeah.
to take down this one stagecoach.
Yeah. And Byron gets he gets gut shot, and I was like, oh, he's dead. And he like just doesn't die, and they have to haul him into town to the vet, and it's this very graphic scene where the vet has to like get the bullet out of his guts. And
The vet played by Alan Tudyk. Doc Potter. He's not Alex Potter. He's not Alex Potter, the town drunk. He's Doc Potter, the town Alan
he's
Tudyk.
just like fully ripped open. Like this man basically gives him a C-section to get this bullet out of him, and he's like up and walking and on his feet 15 minutes later. It is nonsense what this man's body goes through.
But Byron McElroy's a tough guy.
But there's this.
He's a real like man with no name throwback. He's the kind of tough guy. I could see someone in like the special features in the behind the scenes talking about this movie, go like, we really want to do a throwback to these like real tough guys that aren't in movies anymore. Even though none of them were in the original 3:10 to Yuma.
Yeah.
That wasn't the story they were telling, and
No.
none of that
So they
character
had to
type
add
are
this
in
character.
it. So we have this new like Clint Eastwood type character, and Peter Fonda, he's okay. He's a name.
Yeah.
He's been around for a long time. He's doing his best John Wayne impression, and I didn't buy it for a second.
And he does get thrown off a cliff like halfway through the movie.
Yeah, Ben Wade throws him off.
He
a
goes
cliff.
through a lot. But anyway, what I keep trying to say
I'm
is
sorry.
that
I wanted to finish my thought.
I was trying to make a point about things that are funny being treated as not funny.
Yeah.
So there's this scene where Mr. Butterfield is like back at the marshal's office, and they're like waiting for the stagecoach to come in, and he's so nervous. And at one point they're like, do you think like it could have been taken? And he's like, no, impossible, because the Pinkertons are on board, and that's why they're paid $18 a day. And it's like there's no. Like, that's laughable to a modern ear, right? To be paid $18 a day for something. But there's no joke to it. Like, there's no wink at the audience. It's just like deadly serious. $18 a day. And it sounded ridiculous. It just felt ridiculous that like, I don't know. The movie didn't feel self-aware.
But also, like, due to the fact that we know that they fucked up.
Yeah.
Like,
Also,
the
they fucked
Pinkertons
it. Right.
did
like, they did a
fail.
bad job for their $18. So anyway, like everything, as you say, is just like dialed up to 11. So the same plot happens, that the gang all kind of like troops into town, and like the law all rides out to try to like find the stagecoach.
This was really quickly one funny scene. Charlie Prince is played by Ben Foster. And Ben Foster does have this really funny scene where he like pretends to be like not himself.
Yeah, like just like
steals a hat and a jacket and
he's like,
stuff.
hey,
And
mister.
hey, the stage got robbed. I think it was Ben Wade and his handsome accomplice, Charlie Prince.
Yeah.
He doesn't say that specifically, but like that's how he gets the marshal out, and then they all get to go to the bar.
And then they're like, "Why didn't you stop him?" And he's like, "Mister, they had guns. I'm just myself." So anyway, as you say, they all go to the bar, and it's like, okay, this is another example. So in the original movie, there's the scene where they go to the bar, and the barmaid is like going like person by person, just like pouring out the whiskey, and they're like making an effort to talk about what just happened, but like using different terminology, so it's not obvious that they just robbed a stagecoach and killed a bunch of people. So it's like, yes, those sheep, we won't see those sheep again, like that type of thing. But in this, they could not care less. They just waltz in there like 12 guys loudly talking about their crimes in broad daylight for anyone to hear when they're supposed to be like on the run and in hiding. And then the same scene happens between Ben Wade and the barmaid, that she's like, "I am here for the taking." And somehow it just feels like the way that it's shot or the way that it's acted or something about it feels less consensual than the 57 version, which is kind of striking, that it does not feel like there's this part where he like comes up behind her and like touches her, and she kind of like, the look on her face I think is meant to be like, oh, this is happening, but because her eyes kind of roll back in her head, it looks like the expression on her face makes it look like, all right, I guess I'm going to have to let him do this to me.
Because
like,
he is very dangerous.
Because he's very dangerous.
And there's an implication.
And I don't think that's what the filmmakers were going for. I really don't. Because immediately after that, there's this sort of post-coital scene where he's like literally drawing her like one of his French girls and asking her to come away to Mexico with him. And she's like, "I've been given new life." Like her hair is all down. She looks great.
So I have two things to say to that.
Yes.
One, this goes back to my like imaginary, because I'm making a lot of wild speculation at this point about like the intention of the filmmakers, because I don't know and I don't have them here and I can't ask them. I can only say like what I imagine them to be saying based on what I saw on screen. So I already talked about like, Byron McElroy. We need this throwback to an old tough guy, even though there's no one like that was in the original 3:10 to Yuma. That wasn't the type of Western that it was. I feel like there is a thing that I see. Okay, Spectre. You never saw Spectre, the latest James Bond movie.
No.
Not the one that Phoebe Waller-Bridge wrote that still has yet to come out, but the one that came out after Skyfall.
Okay.
And I remember before it came out, the filmmakers, and Daniel Craig too, in a lot of interviews they talked about the fact that, because there's always two Bond girls in a Bond movie.
Okay.
In this one, Monica Bellucci is a Bond girl.
Uh-huh.
And they talked a lot about the fact that like how good and progressive is it that they are actually casting a woman who is age appropriate for Daniel Craig.
Okay.
Instead of just putting him in there. Other movies would just put him in there with like a 25-year-old or something like that.
Sure.
But look, we actually have this mature woman who's actually age appropriate for it. Look how good we are.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember hearing about that and thinking, well, that's actually kind of cool, because I loved Skyfall.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Daniel Craig is great. He's my favorite Bond. That's what I'm thinking at this time. He is my favorite Bond, but that's definitely what I was thinking at the time. And I think Monica Bellucci is great, and she's also beautiful. And then I saw the movie. And we've never really talked about it. It is the rapiest thing I have ever seen. I felt disgusting walking out of that movie. I hated the movie in general, but that was the thing that put me over the edge. He forces himself on her in a way that is deeply uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And I'm sure the filmmakers were sitting there thinking to themselves, oh, no, she's into it. She doesn't act like she's into it.
Yeah.
And as a viewer, I'm not given enough to show me that she's into it.
Yeah.
I just have James Bond forcing himself on this woman.
Right.
I feel like that's what happened in this one.
Yes. Yeah.
Like Russell Crowe, this is the second thing. Can we talk about casting for a second? So Glenn Ford in the original, he's boyish and clean shaven and he's very polite. He also is dangerous. We know he's dangerous. He kills people.
But like in an attractive way.
Yeah. He doesn't act dangerous.
Yeah.
He does things to prove to us that he is dangerous.
Yeah.
This Ben Wade, he's dangerous.
Yeah.
He is Russell Crowe. He's gruff. He's grizzled. He is very scary the entire time. And you always feel like he's about to fly off the handle. He's someone who acts dangerous. He doesn't just do things that prove to us he's dangerous. He acts dangerous, which makes the whole scene feel so much rapier.
It was uncomfortable to watch.
Mm-hmm.
I did not like it.
I hit on something. I'm going to talk about it now. I haven't thought this for 13 years, but I have become more convinced of it than anything. They cast this movie backwards. Christian Bale should have been Ben Wade, and Russell Crowe should have been Dan Evans, if those are the two actors that they have to cast.
Yeah.
Because Christian Bale, he was like a pretty boy.
Yeah.
You know? Like every woman from my generation was like, oh, the guy from Newsies and Little Women? He's adorable.
Yeah.
You know?
I know. I do know. Yes, correct.
I know you do. But by this point in his career, I think he was way more interested in playing someone more serious and more grizzled.
Yeah.
So he's playing Dan, and it's just a slog. Like, he's just a sad sack.
Such a sad sack.
And it didn't feel super believable to me watching it because, like, he's a pretty boy. I get that he's got one leg, but also it was really selective in how much that one leg affected him.
Like, it literally from minute to minute, he was only limping when it was convenient for the plot.
There's like a thing later in the movie where they're going to jump from a rooftop to another rooftop.
Like, can you make it?
And Ben goes like, "Can you make it?" And Dan goes, "Yeah." And it's like, "No, you fucking
cannot.
can't.
And also, how would you know?
You have one leg.
They're like dipping and dapping back and forth between like these. It's like the end was so dumb.
I know.
But
anyway, if you were going to actually try to evoke the original and have a Ben Wade who is kind of a pretty boy, but is very polite and I would buy her being like immediately attracted to him. Like that's Christian Bale at that point for me.
Yeah.
And if you want this farmer who's like a little past his prime, a little older, he's a little grizzled, he's not an action star, Russell Crowe can play that, and he can play that really well. I get why both of them probably wanted to be in this.
Yeah.
I think it was cast wrong.
Mm-hmm.
I would have completely switched them. Quick thing about the casting, too. Two actors that were in talks to be in this movie for a while, and then it went into turnaround. Eric Bana was originally in talks to play Dan Evans.
Okay.
And Tom Cruise was in talks to play Ben Wade.
Gotcha.
And that makes more sense to me.
I guess.
Because, like, Tom Cruise, that's him playing against type.
Yeah.
Even though once or twice he has played an antagonist, Tom Cruise has made his career playing a protagonist.
Sure.
He has played like idealistic, wide-eyed, like pretty action heroes. That's Tom Cruise's whole thing. He's always got that smile and he's got a lot of charisma. So him playing Ben Wade, he's not my first choice, but like that makes more sense to me if what you're trying to do is evoke the 57-310 to Yuma.
Yeah.
If you're not trying to evoke it, if you're just trying to do a totally different thing and you want to create a bad guy who just projects quote unquote dangerous the entire time, sure, cast Russell Crowe.
Yeah.
It's fine. And people responded to it, and it is well liked, and his performance was well regarded, but I think it's wrong.
Yeah.
I don't like it.
Well, let's advance the plot a little bit.
Okay.
So very similar sequence of events happens. They kind of use Dan to catch Ben.
But he doesn't know about it.
He doesn't know about it.
No. I'm saying in this one, he doesn't know about it.
Oh, okay.
Dan doesn't know that they're using him.
You're right.
Yeah.
But it doesn't really matter. And they kind of deputize. Oh, and they're looking for a man to like take this job. And in the original, he was like really reluctant. He was like, no, I'm not going to do it. And this one, he like immediately is on. He's like, I can do it. I was a good shot. I was a good shot when I was in the war.
When I was in the Civil War.
Oh my God. At one point, no, I think this was the point where this happened, and they say, so it's just an example of how everything in this movie is like over explained. He says, I was the best shot in my regiment, and someone says to him, did you fight for the North or the South? Making it very clear to the viewer which war they're talking about. No one would say that. They would say, which side were you on? Like, do you know what I mean?
Yes.
No one would say, did you fight for the North or the South? As it turns out, he's from Massachusetts, which we're going to talk about in a second, because I got so excited about this.
Yeah.
Just really geeked out about a history fact that I only just learned this week and then got re-amplified in this movie. So
we're going to bring
anyway,
it all back to the Capitol insurrection.
Yeah. So they do the thing where they go out, they do the whole switch on the stagecoach, and they switch with someone that's in the stagecoach very clearly wearing Ben Wade's hat. That's a very important plot point. They switch hats, and they go to Dan's house, and they see his wife and his boys, and like, to your point, Russell Crowe is not being charming and fun and a good house guest and like telling interesting tales to the boys and charming the wife. He's just sitting there being like super dangerous and scary. And it doesn't give, I don't know, it just like doesn't give them a lot to play off of, I guess.
No, and they do the thing with Grace where he starts eating before they say Grace, and the kid says something and they start to say Grace, but he just plows ahead. He's like, oh, you're going to say Grace? That's fine.
Yeah.
You fucking normies.
Yeah.
I'm going to sit here and eat my food, tear it with my teeth because I'm a man. I don't give a shit about your society you're trying to build over here.
Yeah. So this is the part I wanted to talk about. So as they're sitting at dinner, I think the question comes up, how did you lose your leg?
Mm-hmm.
And
which it would.
It
definitely would.
As it might. And one of the kids says, my dad was in the war. He defended the U.S. Capitol from the South.
I like
and
how you say
went,
one of the kids. Like, it's clearly
it's
the
the
kid
little
who's,
kid.
who's not the super shitty one.
Shitty one.
Can we talk more about him in a little bit?
Yeah, we'll talk about him in a... Well, he's got a whole plot line that hasn't
Yeah.
even started yet at the point that I'm talking about. He says, my dad was in the war. He defended the U.S. Capitol. And I went, wait a second. Because we all just learned this week that the last time National Guard troops were garrisoned at the Capitol was in 1861 during the Civil War. And what we also learned this week was, which is important for those of us who live in Massachusetts, that the troop that was garrisoned there was the 182nd Massachusetts Volunteer National Guard, which accurately, he says, I was out of Lynnfield, Massachusetts, home.
Well, this
a
is
very nice Apple store.
Yeah, there was an Apple store I worked at for a little bit.
And the Whole Foods
I used
where
to work at the fruit stand.
And the Whole Foods where you can buy alcohol. Although the one on...
like some of you are listening to this outside of Massachusetts going like, what do you mean a Whole Foods where you can buy alcohol? In Massachusetts, only a couple of them are allowed to sell alcohol.
Yes.
The rest of them can't because we live in a puritanical society.
The one on Memorial Drive actually has alcohol.
Okay.
Just so you know.
Yeah, I know.
So you don't have to drive to Lynnfield.
No, but I know that. We're getting very specific.
Anyway, but I got very excited because I was like, oh my gosh, this is what we all like, because I didn't know that. Maybe people who are more bigger like Civil War geeks than I am, which is not at all, knew that already. But I got very excited because there was a historical reference in this movie to something that we all just learned about this week.
Mm-hmm.
And then later he goes into sort of more detail about how he was with the National Guard and he never saw any action. But he actually got like shot in the foot by one of his own men, like on retreat, and he lost his leg. But
that's like Ben's got him down and he's trying to strangle him. He's like, I couldn't. That's why I got to do this. That's why I got to get you on my train because I'm a fraud. My life is terrible and I'm a fucking sad sack. And this is the only good thing that I have the potential to even do in my entire life.
Which is and the other funny thing is that like, so they're living in Arizona, which we learned they had to move out for the health of the youngest boy because he needed to be in a dry climate, which is why Dan is holding on so hard to like this completely failed ranch and farm. And it's just funny because like Christian Bale is doing this sort of like quasi southern western accent, but his character's from Massachusetts. Like they just moved out from Massachusetts like a couple of years before. He wouldn't talk like that. He wouldn't talk like that at all. And we know, I mean, Christian Bale's natural accent is a mystery at this point, but
it's whatever it needs to be.
It's whatever it needs to be at any given point.
Quick thing about Christian Bale, when they were making this movie, this is a delightful trivia that I found out years ago. They would see signs for Santa Fe constantly, and he has said that basically for the whole production of this movie, the song Santa Fe was stuck in his head.
From Newsies. That's cute.
Which I think is adorable.
That's actually really, really cute.
Yeah.
He's adorable. I love Christian Bale.
He seems to be just kind of a piece of shit asshole.
Yeah.
Who's also great, and I love him. I love Christian Bale. He's great. Anyway, getting back to the plot. So they leave the house, and we have this entire section of the movie that is in the desert. And it's them under cover of night. It's Dan and Doc Potter and also a heavy from the town. He's the one that burned Dan's barn down at the beginning.
Because he owes him money.
Yeah, a guy named Tucker who works for a guy named Mr. Hollander.
Yeah, he owes Mr. Hollander a lot of money.
Yeah, and Tucker's, by the way, played by Kevin Durand, who's a character actor that I fucking love, and he's great in everything he's in. Real interesting heavy.
He's not in it for much longer. This character's about to bite it.
Oh, yeah. So they all go off into the desert with Butterfield is with them, right?
He is with them. Yeah, he's with them the whole time.
Yeah, Butterfield's with them, and Ben is obviously with them. And Dan goes off, and he's the only representative of his family that goes off to escort Ben to the 310 to Yuma.
Yes.
That he knows about because...
so we're back at the ranch. The 14-year-old is like, I want to go with you, and Dan is like, no, you got to stay here and protect your mother and brother, which is totally reasonable of him to say.
Yeah.
But this shitty kid, like, they're out the door for 15 seconds, and the mom is like, okay, well, good night, boys. And like before she's even turned out the lamp, he is like gone. There is no way that they would not know that he had left. He is gone instantly. So he follows them, and he's sleeping like he's hiding like in the bushes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know. I do want to talk a little bit more about Logan Lerman as William Evans,
Yes.
the shitty kid.
So shitty.
I didn't plan on going off a big thing, but I do want to bring it up for a second. So there's no Sir not appearing in this film. I guess Alex Potter, even though Doc Potter, doesn't really matter. It's like when you have a short story, it's not often that like characters don't show up in later ones. But female part's a little underwritten. I am curious how you felt about Gretchen Mol in this.
Yeah.
About this version of Alice.
Well, I appreciate you bringing it up because I felt that. So in the earlier version, I felt that character had a lot of agency. In this one, I felt the opposite. I felt like she is just there for the fact of him having a wife, that he feels like he's disappointed her because she doesn't really do anything other than be a mom and also his wife. Like, she's just kind of there. And it's just, the movie kind of takes place inside his head, and he's got a wife, and we've seen what she looks like. And there's an actress that is playing her. And that is not, she's not a very fully fleshed out character.
I didn't even think she was cast very well because, like, I like Gretchen Mol.
She's so young and pretty. Like, I don't know, the actress in the original I like because she like looked like a middle-aged mom. Like, she was a very pretty woman, but like she looked like a mom. And in this, she looks like they picked her off the streets of New York City and like put her in a dress.
So we got to go to an island.
Yeah,
she's very. Gretchen Mol is a very, very beautiful blonde woman.
Yes,
and young, and it did not. Just does, and then she disappears halfway through. She's not in the rest of the movie.
Well, there's this whole plot point where Ben needles Dan about like, well, if I had your woman, like I bet she used to be a real pretty girl, and until she married you, and you made her life so hard. It's like she's still very pretty and looks great. Like, I don't know how pretty you want her to be. She looks fine to me.
Whereas, like in the original, she projected mom.
Yeah,
so it was okay.
Yeah,
like you could understand him saying, like, he's saying it to be shitty. It's not like I agree with him.
Yeah,
but like him saying the shitty thing at least made sense. In this one, it didn't make any sense.
It made no sense.
Anyway, quick little sidebar about the female part, but let's get back to William Evans for a second.
Great.
What a fucking piece of shit this kid is.
He's just so he's not helpful, like super sullen and a jerk. And even after he like runs away to be with them, like he cannot like just get the scowl off of his face the whole time. He's such a shitty kid.
The only scene in the entire movie that he says anything that is even like anything less than completely shitty is at the end after Dan has been shot a bunch and is dying and Ben's on the train. He looks down and says like, "You got him on the train, Pa.
I'm so proud of you, Pa.
I'm proud of you." It's like the only thing he says that is not overtly shitty the entire movie. And I'm sure it's like a boiling the frog type thing. Like, I'm sure as they were making the movie, they directed him in like every moment be like, this, you're really angry at him right now.
Yeah.
But then the next time he has a line, the direction is like, you're really
still
angry at him.
Still angry.
And if you were to take every scene that he's in and cut them all together, it does not a believable character make. It is excessive how much of a shithead he is.
Because I'd like to see, for his arc, I'd like to see him admire his dad a little bit. You know what I mean? Like, his dad is just so worried about disappointing his son, and his son hates him.
Yeah, I don't understand why he wants to impress
like,
this shithead.
I don't know why he cares at this point. Anyway.
Yeah, his son Will is a goddamn piece of shit. He is the worst. So they're in the desert for a long time, and of course there's escalation, and they get attacked by the Indians.
Of course they do.
Even though that's not really.
And Ben Wade saves their lives.
Like, do we want to make the case that bad representation is better than no representation?
In this case, probably not, because there's really bad Chinese representation also.
There's that.
I was like, how is this movie more and Native American? Like, I was like, how is this movie more racist than the original movie? I don't understand.
Like, yeah, you can say, oh, well, we're presenting it in a little more historically accurate way, but like, they're not characters. None of them have names. Like, from a story standpoint, you've added characters, quote unquote, but they're just props.
Yeah, I mean, one of Ben's gang, literally, his name is the Apache.
Yeah.
Like
He
he's
doesn't
got
have any lines.
he doesn't have any lines. That he's just like, oh, he's a good shot or whatever.
Mhm. So they go through the desert, and one of the things that's changed is one of the things I liked in the original is the idea that they go to the town of contention. There is a funeral happening. It is for the guy that Ben killed.
Right.
And his brother is there, and he wants to kill Ben. It's relevant. It is directly related to the plot. It makes perfect sense. And when Dan saves him, that like establishes their new kind of a new turning point in their relationship.
Right.
In this one, Ben escapes from them. Oh, he's killed Tucker by this point. He like stabbed him in the throat
Oh
with a fork a bunch of
'cause
times.
he was mad at him for whistling or singing.
Well, for being a general shithead.
Yeah, and I think he's also killed Byron McElroy at this point,
Yes.
hasn't he? He's thrown him off the cliff.
Yeah. So he has escaped. It is a very violent movie.
It's so
This is
violent.
an excessively violent movie.
So he's escaped and he's made his way to this work site where the
building
Chinese
the
are
railroad.
building the railroad.
And
Which
Luke Wilson is
always
there.
makes me think of the Big Lebowski, where he's like, this is not a guy that built the railroad here.
So anyway, Luke Wilson is there with a couple other guys. Luke Wilson just in it.
Yeah,
Just
just
fine.
sort of doing a moderate cameo.
Yeah, working actor Luke Wilson.
Yeah.
I'd call it a cameo.
It's a cameo.
Like, yeah.
He's just like, he was on set for probably 2 days.
And there's a guy there who's like the head of this whole thing. It turns out Ben Wade killed his brother.
And we find that out immediately.
This movie has so much exposition. Like you talked about it before, but
Yeah.
like this is a screenplay where they clearly were so worried people aren't going to understand what's happening. We got to explain it. People aren't going to understand what's happening. We got to explain it. They explain everything.
Yeah.
Nothing is left up to the imagination. No assumptions are made based on like the audience understanding. So when Charlie and the gang find out that the wagon was a decoy, in the original, they just kind of
They're
figure
like,
it out
"Eh."
because they're not that important.
Right.
The gang is not that important. What's important is that they're in contention. In this one, though,
The gang burns a stagecoach.
they find the stagecoach. They shoot the guy driving the stagecoach. They go to rescue Ben. It's not Ben, so they burn the whole thing
burn
and the
him
guy
alive.
inside.
They
after
burn him
they
alive.
take Ben's hat back. Like none of this. You didn't need to sell me as an audience member that Charlie and the rest of the gang are bad guys. We have seen them be very violent and very bad. This isn't adding to the tension at all. It's just more violence happening.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't need to be
So
there.
anyway,
So now we get more violence because these guys take Ben hostage and they're electrocuting
they're like
him.
electrocuting his privates. Like, I don't even know. Like, why? How are they electrocuting him?
And Dan and
do
the
they
gang.
have that technology?
I mean,
Clearly, they do.
this is a very historically accurate movie. I can
mean,
only assume, in every other sense, I assume that this was historically accurate as well.
Someone found out about the National Guard being called in to protect the Capitol and was like, I got to write that into a movie.
Mm-hmm. So Dan and the guys mosey into the work camp and they see what's happening. They're like, hey, he's ours. We got to get him on a stage. And like, no, we're going to kill him because he killed my brother. And the thing about it is, yeah, you've taken the whole brother dying, and yes, they save him, and that's Dan saving his life. But because we don't know the brother, you've actually removed it from the plot of the movie. Like now it has nothing to do with the plot of the movie.
Yeah.
It's just these guys who are suddenly there saying they have a history with Ben and they try to kill him. Like you're adding something that's taking away from how streamlined the original story is.
Yeah.
And they save him, they do. And Doc Potter gets it in the back.
He does.
We lose Alan Tudyk.
Lose the one
And as he's
shining ray of light. in
as
this
he's
movie.
dying, he looks up at Christian Bale and says those immortal words, "I am a leaf on the wind. Watch how I soar." So he's dead, and then they make it to contention.
You will notice we've now been talking about this movie for approximately 1,000,000 minutes, and
We're
we
almost
have
done.
not gotten to the hotel room.
Yeah,
scene
like
yet.
the hotel scene is bullshit. It's way less of the movie than in the original, like percentage wise. Even length of time they're in the hotel room, way less. But also, so many more characters are involved. Like Will's there in the hotel room. Butterfield is there constantly.
Yeah, they go and get the sheriff of the town who brings his posse.
Yeah.
Who they are then the gang rides into town. There's like so many of them, and the sheriff is like, because they recruit all these guys from the town.
Well, yeah, so this is the big escalation where Charlie looks at the whole town and says, hey, my boss is up there. He's being protected by some people who want to put him on the train, the 310 to Yuma. I'll pay anybody here $200 for every one of his captors that they kill.
So now
the whole town is trying to kill them.
Now it's and the sheriff, the marshal, and his guys are like, listen, this is not a fair fight. Like, I'm sorry, we were prepared to like defend you, but this is not cool.
We're gonna walk out the front door and hope that nothing happens
and hope that
to
nothing
us.
bad happens to us. Spoiler alert, they get gunned the fuck down. Why did they not take a back entrance? So stupid.
I love the line in Back to the Future 3 when Marty says to the bartender, hey, does this place have a back door? And the bartender just goes, yeah, it's in the back.
So anyway, so many people have died.
But what I was saying was, like, because so many characters are involved and because the running time has been shortened, the hotel scene, quote unquote, is nothing.
Yeah.
It's just a scene now. It's just a couple of
just
scenes. It is no longer the centerpiece. The centerpiece of the original was this beautiful, tense, long hotel scene between these two characters where you really get to see them bounce off each other for a while. It was unique and compelling. And in this one, they've replaced it all with violence.
Yeah. And
that's essentially what they've done.
And Russell Crowe gives a brief backstory about how his mother abandoned him when he was a child.
It's like in rapid succession, there's like 3 backstories that are given.
Yeah.
Where Christian Bale tells Russell Crowe why he can't sell his farm because they have to stay in a dry climate for his son who has the tuberculosis.
He's got the consumption.
Yeah. Russell Crowe tells him about his whole history, about how he was abandoned by his mother.
She made him read the Bible. And
yeah.
Yeah.
And then Dan gives Ben the whole backstory about how he lost his leg.
Yes.
So it's just all these characters who are just like, here's the thing I've never told you before, and I'm going to tell it to you, and it's going to completely change your mind about who I am as a character, and it's going to change your actions from here on out.
Yeah.
And it's way too convenient, and there's way too much of it, and it bugged the fuck out of me.
Yeah. So anyway, the boy is there. The boy is like the only one that's still, because Butterfield has abandoned them now. Butterfield does the same thing. He's like, I will pay you. Like, you don't have to stay. And he's like, I'm gonna stay.
Yeah.
And so they end up, and he's like, Butterfield, like you make sure my boy gets out of here okay, and like my wife is okay, and everything like that. And there is this massive, stupid, unrealistic, dumb video game style gun battle.
Quick little thing. It is really fun. Just from a cathartic movie violence, like as a throwback to the type of Westerns that this is clearly a throwback to, I was able to separate myself from how annoyed I was, and I really did enjoy the entire town trying to kill them.
Yeah.
Many people die. Then I started to think about it and thought, well, the entire reason Dan is even doing this is to do the right thing, but he's also killing a lot of people who are not murderers. Like, they're not part of Ben's gang, but he's mowing them down because they're getting in his way.
Yeah. And it's like the kind of thing where like anytime anyone needs to duck, there's always a convenient like barrel or like some hay or anyway. So they get to the train station and like the conductor's like shaking in his boots and they're like, where's the train? And he's like, it's late.
Yeah. Sometimes trains are late.
So they're delayed. So like they're subverting this expectation, right? Because in the original, it's like the train is here. We got to get to it. In this one, it's like we got to get there. Oh, the train's not here. So now we have to stall. And spoiler alert, I guess not spoiler.
We said that at the beginning.
They do not successfully stall. Dan is shot approximately 1 million times, and
the train has arrived. You got Ben on the train, and Ben, they have their little moment where Ben's like, I'm gonna get on this train because I agree with you, and you're a good man.
You're a good man.
You and I are good.
You're trying to do the right thing for your family and all this.
And at that point, Charlie walks up with the gang after he's been trampled by a stampede.
Oh yeah, so he is in a really bad shape, and he just shoots the fuck out of this guy.
Yeah,
and he fully dies.
And then Ben he's trying to stop him. He's telling him like no, because he sees what's about to happen. He's like no, and then Charlie kills him a bunch. He gets down out of the train. I just imagine
the train sits there for so long.
I just imagine that the jailer on the train, like the guy running like the cell, he must be just like, I'm not gonna say anything. I don't want to get shot.
Yeah,
Ben Wade just got put on my train, and then he just stepped off.
You guys are gonna have to work this out amongst you.
And Charlie gives Ben his gun back, and Ben. This annoyed me.
Yeah,
this goes back to the stuff I'm talking about, like. What tells us that a character is a certain way? It's their actions.
Mm-hmm.
You don't necessarily need to telegraph what they're going to do before they do it. It's the thing that they do that's the interesting thing.
Yeah.
So Ben kills his whole posse.
Yes.
I don't really buy that, but he does it. because
He's
Dan told him the story about.
He feels now he's mad that they killed Dan.
Yeah. So suddenly they have a relationship, even though I don't feel like they sold it really well. But the second before, it's not even the second, it's like the 10 seconds before he shoots them all, the camera goes in on Russell Crowe's dangerous face and the music swells. And they are telling you, Ben Wade is about to kill all of them. Just so you know, I know it hasn't happened yet, but he is about to kill all of them.
Because he's mad at them.
Because he's very mad. And then he takes his gun out and he shoots all of them.
Does.
And the filmmaker's going like, see, I told you that he was really mad and now he killed all
What
of
a
them.
surprise.
Aren't you surprised? Don't you love this movie? I hate how that stuff is telegraphed. Like, just to have him do the dangerous thing and let me, as an audience member, either feel like, oh, I saw that coming, or I was totally shocked by that. But if you take away my ability to guess, like, it's not surprising anymore.
Yeah.
I didn't appreciate that.
So anyway, the son is redeemed.
Well, he started the stampede that trampled Charlie Prince.
Right.
He's the one. He does like the most lackluster
Hi-ya!
ever.
Hi-ya!
Firing his gun in the air because he's got to stall because the train's late.
Right.
So he gets the stampede to go across and trample Charlie Prince, and then the whole thing happens.
It seems like Butterfield's going to take care of them, and Russell Crowe gets on the train, and then.
Can I stop you?
Yes.
Because you're about to end the movie.
I'm about to end the movie with the stupidest ending of any movie I've ever seen.
Okay, one thing that also is very distracting this entire time, and this is not their fault, I just am so entertained by it. They shot this movie in the winter, and yeah, they're in Arizona, and you expect it not to snow.
It did.
It did snow, and this is not their fault. I don't think this is a failure of filmmaking. I think this is just a funny thing, and it's unfortunate. It snowed a lot for the finale, and so the entire time, while this whole video game-esque shootout is happening, where the entire town is trying to kill them, you constantly see shots of the wide vistas outside the town, and everywhere outside the town is covered by 6 inches of snow.
So much snow.
Everything. There's not a single bit of snow
not
in the town.
Not a drop of snow.
At all. Because when they were shooting it, they were like, fuck, we got to cover up all this snow. So they covered up all the snow with dirt, and they worked, they burned the midnight oil trying to do all that. But like, then they also show you literally the train tracks, everything on one side. It literally
is like it snowed on one side, but not the other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it is very distracting. And it's a bummer.
It's a
bummer, and it's unfortunate.
I don't even know that I would have noticed if you hadn't pointed it out to me.
I think it is impossible not to notice now. I think it's great.
So anyway,
I feel bad for them.
So anyway, we learned earlier that Russell Crowe has broken out of Yuma prison twice before, so he's actually not that worried that he's gonna have to die there.
Yeah.
And I guess the implication is that the thing that he's about to do. So up until this point, like, there's been a bunch of horses and stuff in the movie, but like, Ben Wade has not necessarily telegraphed any relationship with any one particular horse. Like, we don't know his horse's name. He's never had to be in a situation where he had to like defend the horse, or like he needed to get his horse back because it was his horse.
We know he has a relationship with his hat.
Yeah.
And we know he has a relationship with his gun.
But nothing about his horse. And maybe there was stuff that was cut. I don't know. But he's on the train. The train is pulling away. This is now an outside shot of the train. We just hear a whistle.
Well, you see him whistle.
And then you're outside of the train. You hear the whistle. And then a particular horse just starts trotting after the train. Like, okay, this is his plot. He's going to have the horse follow him to Yuma so that he can use the horse to escape. Yeah. The way that it is shot is very stupid. And it is not an earned moment, because there has been nothing up until this point to make us understand that he has any particular relationship with this very smart horse. It is nothing.
Now, let me push back for a second.
Okay.
Because we just dunked on this movie for over-explaining things.
Yeah.
So how do you thread the needle on that?
I just want to see him have a relationship with the horse. It doesn't have to be like, hey, did you know my horse is really well trained and it always comes when I whistle? Like,
That's fair.
We could have a moment where we see the horse come when he whistles. Like, that's all you would really have to do. But even like explaining that he has a good relationship with this particular horse, I feel like would be not asking too much.
Hey everybody, Jeremy here, recording this after we recorded. Just dropping in. I did go back and I watched the beginning of the movie again, and there is a shot early in the movie where Ben does whistle, and then he gets on his horse. But at no point do you actually see that the horse came to him because he whistled. He like sees something and then he whistles, and then he is on his horse. But it is not clear that his whistle had anything to do with the horse. So while, yes, technically it's there, I think our original point stands. And I just wanted to say, for the record, I can see what they were trying to do in retrospect. I do not think they sold it, and I believe our point stands. Anyway, back to the show. Yeah, I feel like the thing about the whistling, the thing it bugs me about, again, it keeps coming back to like, what was their intent when they were doing this? I feel like they're trying to evoke this like mythical character of the like Western outlaw, and he has like almost magical powers. Whereas like in the original, they're just people.
Yeah.
And people aren't capable of magic. They're just people. And what we see Ben Wade do in the end of this movie is basically magic.
Yeah.
Is that magical realism? I'm embarrassed to say. At this point, I don't know what magical realism is, and I'm too afraid to ask.
Magical realism is like when there is a world that is like our world. It's not like a fantasy world, but like things happen that couldn't possibly happen in this world.
So, like, if a guy on a train whistles very quietly and a horse 100 yards, like a horse a ways away, chases the train.
I don't necessarily know that counts, but we can talk about it off air.
I guess what I throughout this entire movie, I get what they're trying to do. It didn't work for me, and I feel like this is my final thing. I've said it too many times. They're trying to evoke something that was different than the original movie. So I wish they had just remade something else or done an original story. It bums me out that they made a movie that's like not terrible. It's fine. It's an okay movie. But because it's a remake of a much better movie that's very different, I'm going to now negatively view it. I'm going to compare it against the original, and it doesn't hold up.
Yeah.
It doesn't hold a candle to the original as far as I'm concerned.
Agreed. Well, that sounds like a good transition into doing some quadrants.
Let's do some quadrants. All right. 1957. Do you feel that they cared about the source material?
No.
I
don't think so. Not particularly.
They changed the characters and everything like
Yeah.
that. Like, it is a very, maybe it takes some love to expand something that short to a feature, but also inspiration comes from a lot of different places. I don't think we can assume that they cared about the source material.
No.
Is it successful?
Yes, it's successful.
Very good movie. 2007. Did they care about the source material?
The story?
The source material.
No, they absolutely did not.
Did they care about the original movie? Not that matters, but did they?
I think they did.
I don't think they did.
You don't think they cared?
I don't. I don't think they cared about the 57-310 to Yuma because this is a totally different movie. I don't know what they're trying to evoke, but it's not the 57-310 to Yuma.
Gotcha.
I think they failed in that.
I see.
Is it successful?
I would not say so.
We don't think so. I think we're in the minority on that one.
I don't know why. It's very strange.
Going on, like, anytime I go to, like, the Wikipedia page for any of these movies, I always go to critical reception, and you always get, like, a ton of, like, here's a sentence from this critic, and here's a sentence from this critic, and I felt like I was taking crazy pills reading all of these. Everyone's talking about a different movie than the one I watched, because the one I watched was big and dumb and thoughtless and super violent, and they're all talking about this really thoughtful, mature movie that harkens back to the bygone era. Like, I didn't get that from this movie. I didn't like it.
Yeah. The end.
Shall I wrap this up?
Yes.
Well, this has been Adapt or Perish. If you'd like to find us online, we're on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at AdaptCast. You can join our groups on Facebook and Goodreads, and you can also find and follow me on Letterboxd. If you have anything to say that's longer than a tweet, you can always send an email to adaptorperishcast@gmail.com. If you'd like to support the show, there are 3 great ways that you can do it. First, tell a friend. Second, a rating and review on your podcast platform of choice would be greatly appreciated. And third, we are on Patreon at patreon.com/adaptcast. We have a special bonus show called Adapter Perish Plus that comes out every other week between this show. And we have a special fan community on Slack that we really enjoy. So if you'd like to support us there, you can always go to our Patreon page.
I'll never walk in your shoes.
Well, yeah, because, I got some joke about the fact that I got one damn leg.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm going to pencil in that I'm going to write a joke. I don't know what the joke is, but I know there's going to be a joke.
It'll be all right.
We'll work on it.
Okay.
We'll workshop some stuff.
It. Okay. Bye, everybody.
Bye.